Hi, it's John. Welcome to my channel EV Intuition, where I'm helping you understand about electric vehicles. One of the big topics today in the EV world is that of adapters. So today I want to talk to you about what is an adapter for an electric vehicle? Do I need one? So let's get started. Before I begin, I want to remind you that if you like the content of my channel, please subscribe and give me a like, or send any comments that you may have. Thanks. Today we're talking about electric vehicle adapters. And before we begin, we have to tell you, well, what is an EV adapter and why are they needed? Basically, an adapter is a device that allows you to connect a charging plug to the receptacle. We do that when the plug and the receptacle do not go directly to each other. So that begs the question, why don't they go directly to each other? And that's the whole story why we have adapters today, is that there are multiple charging connectors, unfortunately, in the United States in use today. Adapters are there to help allow for the physical connection between disparate connecting standards. So let's talk about how we got here. Why do we have multiple connectors in the EV world in the United States and North America? Here's a quick little history. Basically, the EV revolution kind of started in early 2000. The J1772 standard was initially created in 2001 and adopted in California for use in EVs there, where the state was pushing for the use and the creation of electric vehicles. That standard, if you recall from my other videos, deals with electric vehicle charging that's referred to by me as slow charging or level 1 or level 2 AC charging. That was only one part of the charging capabilities that we have today, that being slow chargers. In 2009, they updated the J1772 standard, increasing its power ability and really focusing on the connector shape, which is a rounded connector. Now, 2012 is where problems, I guess, really began, because that year came out the standards for DC fast chargers. Both the CCS standard, called the Combined Charging Standard, was introduced in 2012, which made it also compatible with the AC charger, the J1772. However, there was another big manufacturing company coming along for EVs, that being Tesla, and they had been developing their own standard prior to this and before the standard came out. And so they introduced their vehicles with a proprietary Tesla standard. The interesting thing about the Tesla standard was that it supported both AC and DC in a small connector. Where did this go? Well, we continued with these couple standards, the proprietary Tesla and the CCS and the J1772 standards, for over a decade. In 2022, Tesla decided to open their standard and make it publicly available instead of being a proprietary standard. And the interesting name they gave it is the North America Charging Standard, which they hoped would be adopted by other vehicle manufacturers. Well, the interesting thing is, in May of 23, Ford broke the ice and agreed to adopt the North American Charging Standard as their electric vehicle charging standard starting in 2025 and beyond. And this was a big, sizable event, because that event caused all the other manufacturers to shortly follow suit. And by early 2024, nearly all the EV manufacturers that produce cars in the US said they would support the North American Charging Standard that Tesla opened up. Today, we're in this transitional period. We're going from the old standards of J1772 and CCS, which was adopted by pretty much all the other EV manufacturers in the US, and they're moving to this Tesla standard, which has been recently adopted by the Society of Automotive Engineers as the J3400 spec. And currently it is a recommended practice to use that particular spec. It can be referred to in many different ways as the Tesla standard, the North American Charging Standard, or J3400. Now that we know a history about the electric vehicle connectors in the United States and North America, let's take a closer look at them. Now, the key thing you got to know about any connecting standard is that there is a plug and a receptacle, just like you have with your electric outlets throughout your house. You plug an electric cord into electric outlet. So same thing with a charger. You have a plug and you have a receptacle. So let's start out with J1772, which was the first standard adopted in the United States, and it was for AC, alternating current, slow chargers. That's where the vehicle takes maybe 10 or so hours to fully charge if it's a fully electric vehicle. You can see that this particular standard was adopted by the Society of Automotive Engineers, and it basically consists of a receptacle that looks pretty round. I'm showing you one that is from a hybrid, because a hybrid vehicle will only have a slow charger on it. At least most hybrid, plug-in hybrid vehicles now I'm talking about have this J1772 receptacle in it. And then you can use the J1772 plug to plug into that receptacle. And many of these J1772 plugs are found on chargers in your home or in the public, like in public parking lots, municipal buildings, parking garages, where they have these AC chargers. So next, let's talk about the combined charging standard. And it was called the combined charging standard because it supported both the J1772 plug and the ability to do fast charging, which was a DC fast charging. And if you look at this, it has a receptacle that really consists of two components, the top portion being the J1772 receptacle and the bottom portion being the DC fast charging portion of it. So it turns out to be a very big plug that goes into it. But the interesting thing is that in vehicles that have this, like my Ford Mach-E when I had it, it had one of these. It has these capabilities of only using the top portion. So you could plug in a J1772 to the top portion of your CCS receptacle, and it would charge your vehicle. Now, when you went to a DC fast charger, you would have a bigger plug that would use both the top and the bottom portions of that receptacle, and that plug would plug directly into that. DC fast charging is found on all fully electric vehicles. As we've pointed out now, that's going to start changing. And where is it changing? It's changing to the Tesla or the North American Charging Standard. And if you look at this particular standard, you can see what that charger plug looks like and the receptacle by looking at the plug at a recent supercharger that I went to, and you can see the receptacle in my vehicle. And when you plug that in, it starts charging. So one other standard that I listed here that I haven't talked about at all yet, but you'll see around, and I just want to make a quick mention of it, is referred to as CHAdeMO. It was a Japanese DC fast charging standard that they put on the Nissan Leafs, which came about the same time as the Tesla started coming out, maybe a little before. So they had their own standard. Basically, that standard is on its way out. You'll find it in some of the DC fast chargers, but it will start to disappear as even companies like Nissan and Mitsubishi, who also use that standard, are moving towards the North American Charging Standard. The next thing that I want to point out to you is, okay, now we know the connectors out there and we know the need for adapters because there's a variety of connectors that exist out there. What are the adapters that exist and how are they in use today or in the near future? Let's take a look. And the first thing that's common out there, and it's been very common ever since the beginning of the Teslas, is that Teslas always carried or provided, when you bought a Tesla, a adapter to the J1772 plugs, as they recognize that a lot of the chargers, the level 2 chargers that you found in the city, were based on that particular standard. And so if you wanted to use those public chargers with your Tesla, you needed an adapter. So they provided that adapter with your vehicle. I got one when I bought my vehicle a year and a half ago, and I use it quite often because most of the public chargers are J1772. So that's a common one, and you can see what it looks like. It's a pretty small device. I leave it in my little door compartment, and I pull it out every time I use it. Now, the next thing that's probably going to start seeing a little more use is kind of just the opposite. Now, there's going to be J1772 adapters for Tesla plugs, because what we're expecting is that there might be more and more Tesla level 2 chargers out there, and they would need to be plugged into potentially a J1772 adapter. So if you have, like on your plug-in hybrid, or you have a CCS charger in your vehicle like I did for my Ford Mach-E, and you wanted to use a Tesla level 2 charger, you would still need an adapter to get that Tesla to plug into your vehicle. And that would take this type of an adapter. And you can see it's just the opposite of the previous one I mentioned. Now, the next type of adapter, which is going to become very popular over the next year or two, is the CCS adapter for North American charging standards. And what this does is it allows the non-Tesla vehicles that have the CCS receptacles in them to use Tesla chargers. And that's been what most people have been waiting for, and it's been the big promise of it. Arguably, Tesla's supercharging network, their fast charging network, has been the largest and considered the best, the gold standard of chargers in the United States and North America. And that's really why Ford went that way and all the other manufacturers went that way, is that the charging experience at the Tesla superchargers were way better. And I can vouch for that, having been at both the CCS chargers and the Tesla chargers. My experience has been an order of magnitude better. And so now other non-Tesla vehicles will be able to gather some of that experience by using Tesla superchargers. In the way they're going to have to do that if they have a vehicle that has the native CCS receptacle is to get an adapter. And this adapter I refer to as a CCS adapter for an NACS, a North American Charging Standard plug. And now it depends on what vehicle that you have. Some manufacturers like Ford are providing these free to their customer. There's other manufacturers like GM that I believe are making you pay for this particular adapter. And there's third parties out there. So even if you can get it free, some of the Ford people are still waiting for their free adapter, and it may take another 3 to 6 months before they get it. So if they wanted to use it today, they can go online and get a particular charger, because there's several third-party companies that are building these adapters that will allow you that physical connection today. And I want to point out one other thing when I talk about physical adapters, because there's one other thing that existed. You might ask, well, why didn't people just create this adapter a couple years ago and do this? Well, it takes more than just the physical connection. Tesla had to open up their particular network to these particular vehicle manufacturers. It's not an automatic. And Tesla has been rolling these out as the manufacturers have been working with Tesla to make that happen. Ford was the first one that came out with it, and now recently GM has followed suit, and so has Rivian. So there's at least 3 different EV manufacturers now that can use the Tesla network. Besides just the physical connection, it's been opened to them in the back end, with Tesla allowing that to happen. One last adapter that I want to talk about is the NACS adapter for a CCS plug. Now this is something that I bought a couple years ago. It's really for Tesla owners, and what it allows them to do is use a CCS plug. Now you may ask, well, if you got a great supercharger network, why would you go to a CCS charger? And the answer is most of the time you wouldn't, but there may be a situation in the area that you're in that you need to get a charge, and the CCS charger is closer than the Tesla supercharger. And that may happen in a few areas in the United States and North America. And so you could buy this adapter that plugs into your Tesla and allows you to plug a CCS plug into your Tesla. So you could use the Electrify America or any of the other CCS charging networks that you have. So I hope this video has given you some good insight into what electric vehicle adapters are all about and whether you need them and how they come in handy. As we're in this transitional period, in another probably 10 years, these adapters will all be gone and we'll just be on the single North American charging standard, and it won't be necessary at all. But over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have these vehicles that have different connecting standards on them, and they'll be definitely needed. So if you're in the market for an electric vehicle and you're getting a non-Tesla vehicle that has a CCS plug, I would make sure that you want to check into the availability, or will it be provided, a adapter that allow you to use the Tesla network. So thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.